Germany, a nation forged in fire, shaped by ambition and marred by its darkest chapters. The very word Reich, whispering of empires past, evokes a chilling sense of both grandeur and terror. The First Reich, a fragmented collection of states, rose and fell. The second, Bismarck's iron creation, crumbled under the weight of war. Then came the Third Reich, Hitler's reign of terror, a scar on humanity's conscience. The Nazi regime, fueled by hate and delusion, plunged the world into darkness. Millions perished, their cries echoing through history, "We vowed never again." Yet the seeds of that hatred, though buried deep, were never truly eradicated. The world watched in horror as Hitler's ambitions led to global conflict. The echoes of that war still resonate, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. The world rebuilt, scarred but determined. We believed the nightmare was over. We were wrong. The year is 2025. The global landscape is fraught with tension. Economic instability, political polarization, and resurgent nationalism have created fertile ground for extremism. In this cauldron of uncertainty, the seeds of the Fourth Reich were sown, not in the bombastic pronouncements of a would-be Führer, but in the insidious whispers of discontent. It began subtly, a creeping dissatisfaction with the established order, economic anxieties exploited, national identity weaponized. The political climate, poisoned by misinformation and fear, created an audience receptive to dangerous rhetoric. Politicians, eager to capitalize on the unrest, embraced divisive language. They pointed fingers. They stoked the flames of resentment. The internet, once hailed as a tool for connection, became a breeding ground for hate. Echo chambers amplified extremist views. Algorithms prioritized engagement over truth. The line between reality and online fantasy blurred. A generation, disillusioned and radicalized, was primed for action. They yearned for a return to a mythical past, a time of strength and national pride. They would soon learn that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The transition was gradual, almost imperceptible at first. New laws were passed, ostensibly to combat terrorism and restore order. Civil liberties were eroded in the name of national security. The media, once a watchdog against tyranny, was muzzled. Dissent was silenced. A charismatic leader emerged from the chaos, a master manipulator who understood the power of fear and nostalgia. He promised a return to greatness, a restoration of national pride. The people, desperate for stability, embraced him as a savior. They overlooked his increasingly authoritarian tendencies. His grip on power tightened. Political opponents were silenced. The judiciary was stacked with loyalists. The police state expanded. Surveillance became ubiquitous. Fear became the primary instrument of control. Those who dared to speak out were silenced, imprisoned, or worse. Germany transformed. The vibrant democracy of the past was gone, replaced by a chillingly familiar authoritarian regime. The echoes of the Third Reich were undeniable. The symbols, the rhetoric, the chilling efficiency of the new order sent shivers down the spines of those who remembered the past. Life under the Fourth Reich was one of constant fear and suspicion. The eyes of the state were everywhere. Neighbors informed on neighbors. Children were indoctrinated from a young age. History was rewritten. The Holocaust, a mere footnote in their textbooks. Culture was stifled, art was censored, books were burned, universities became factories of propaganda. Those who refused to conform were ostracized, imprisoned, or disappeared. The world watched in horror as a once proud nation descended into darkness. The question was, would they act before it was too late? But even in the darkest of times, hope flickers. A resistance movement emerged from the shadows, a disparate group of ordinary citizens united in their opposition to the Fourth Reich. They risked everything to fight for freedom, for justice, for the soul of their nation. They worked in secret, spreading messages of hope and defiance through clandestine networks. They used art, music, and literature to subvert the regime's propaganda. They hacked into government systems, exposing the truth behind the lies. They carried out acts of sabotage, disrupting the machinery of oppression. The resistance was a constant thorn in the side of the Fourth Reich, a symbol of hope for the oppressed and a reminder to the oppressors that their grip on power was not absolute. They fought not just for their own freedom, but for the future of Germany, for the day when the nightmare would finally end. The rise of the Fourth Reich sent shockwaves across the globe. Governments struggled to comprehend the resurgence of such a hateful ideology in the heart of Europe. Some, paralyzed by fear or motivated by self-interest, chose appeasement. They believed that dialogue and diplomacy could reason with the unreasonable. Others condemned the Fourth Reich in the strongest possible terms. Sanctions were imposed. Diplomatic relations were severed. Military forces were mobilized. The world was on the brink of a new Cold War. But the international community was divided. Old alliances fractured. New ones were forged, often based on convenience rather than shared values. The global order, already fragile, teetered on the edge of collapse. The specter of war loomed large. The world held its breath, bracing for the storm. The world grappled with a moral dilemma. How could this happen again? How could a nation that had experienced the horrors of the Holocaust succumb to the same hatred and intolerance? The answer, uncomfortable as it was, lay in the collective failure to confront the past. The seeds of the Fourth Reich were sown in the fertile ground of silence. The silence of those who knew better but chose to look away. The silence of those who prioritized stability over justice. The silence of those who believed that it could never happen again. The rise of the Fourth Reich was a stark reminder that evil thrives in the shadows, that indifference is complicity, that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The world had a moral obligation to act, to stand up to tyranny, to defend the values of democracy and human rights, to ensure that never again truly meant never again. As the Fourth Reich consolidated its power, the world watched with bated breath. The future remained uncertain. Would the forces of democracy prevail, or would the world succumb to a new era of darkness? The outcome depended on the choices made by individuals and nations. Would they stand idly by as history repeated itself? Or would they find the courage to confront evil and defend the values of a free and just world? The stakes had never been higher. The world was on edge, balanced precariously between hope and despair. The fight for freedom had just begun, and its outcome would determine the fate of generations to come. The hypothetical rise of the Fourth Reich serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of peace and the ever-present threat of extremism. It is a warning from history, urging us to be vigilant in the face of intolerance and to defend the values of democracy and human rights. We must never forget the lessons of the past. We must never allow ourselves to become complacent. For the sake of our children and our children's children, we must ensure that never again truly means never again.